footing. By and large, and there are some localized exceptions, I recognize that, but the worst effects of the recessions have generally stayed outside of our state, and in fact, the overall unemployment rate in Texas is about 2 points lower than the national average. In fact, and this astounds me every time I say this, in the last year, Texas has created more than half of all jobs that have been created in America. And by some accounts, the state of Texas, the people of the state of Texas, have created 70% of all jobs in America. That is just absolutely phenomenal. We have one of the lowest overall tax burdens in the nation. We have, of course, no state income tax, and we have a very reasonable regulatory environment. And as a result of that, Texas has been the #1 state to do business in by numerous business publications year after year. We are now home to more Fortune 500 companies than any state in the union, and with thousands of middle and small businesses, which are the backbone of our community. Quite frankly, as entrepreneurs, I think Texas does a pretty good job. You know, it's really amazing. Texas has been named as the #1 most transparent state government in the nation. We're the #1 exporter in the country. We're the #1 energy producer in the country. And we are the #1 U.S. relocation destination in this country for the 4th straight year. Let me tell you, when you look at that, I mean, I think it's part of it is because Texans, by and large, have really continued to have a real sense of individual freedom and responsibility that goes with that. And we also value faith in the community and family. And I think that's probably why Texas has 5 of the top 10 most recession-resistant cities in the nation. We have the top 5 healthiest housing markets in the nation. And, excuse me, again, if Texas were a nation, we would have the 12th largest economy in the entire world, right here in our state. It's amazing. The record, quite frankly, in Texas, it's not an accident. It didn't just happen that way. You can't be #1 in all of those categories by accident. So what is it? It's clearly, to me, the result of conservative governance by a conservative governor and a legislature that doesn't overpromise entitlement benefits, doesn't strangle economic activity by regulating it to death. And by the way, let me just tell you, the citizens of Texas can actually go online and see how your tax dollars are spent. You can go on to Susan Combs on the comptroller, and I suggest you do that. It's really amazing to watch where your tax dollars go. Now, under Rick Perry's leadership as governor, Texas has become the conservative standard bearer in our nation. And I think that is the reason, when you look at all 50 states, we're one of the few states that's actually solid. And you guys, Senator, did it without touching the rainy day fund, which is an amazing feat in this economic environment. And I really appreciate the job. You guys did a great job with the budget in this 2009 election cycle. States to work with conservative groups, you just can't imagine. I mean, I'll tell you one quick story. I went to West Virginia to teach a conservative youth camp, and they had me going morning, noon, and night. And I had one little 2-hour break, and a news reporter got me, and he said, "Will you come on and do talk radio this afternoon?" Well, I had spent a week in West Virginia. I was ready to talk about West Virginia politics because they are today where Texas was about 30 years ago. Well, the first thing when he asked me how things were going in Texas with the economy, and I said we created more than half the jobs, I spent an hour on West Virginia radio talking about Texas. It was hilarious, and the callers, they all wanted to know. I mean, guys, if we had any idea how other states look at us, we really are the conservative standard bearer. And I think that in part is why the Democrats have made Texas their #1 target in this next election cycle. I think, yes, redistricting is coming up, and it is going to be critical. We're probably going to get 4 congressional seats out of this redistricting process. That being said, I think there's something else. I think that if they believe if they can tear out the conservative foundation, that it will have waves across America. And that's why they have already sent organizers down into the state of Texas to try to take over the Texas House. Now, we currently have a very slim majority. we have the speaker and one extra person, which is really one vote because the speaker doesn't usually vote. That's why, quite frankly, we were unable to pass photo ID to vote, because we have a majority in the House. We don't have a conservative majority in the House. You have a handful of Republicans who will vote with the Democrats on any given day, and that is a real problem. Now, that being said, that is why the Republican Party of Texas' highest priority in 2010 has got to be about protecting and building on the majority in the Texas House. And that's why we formed the Texas Republican House Committee effort, and they're working on that. I want to tell you a little bit about that committee if you hear about it. It's totally dedicated and committed to protecting and building on the majority that we have in the Texas House by engaging in candidate recruitment, training, research, grassroots activism. But I have to tell you, in the first couple of months, and these numbers are a few weeks old now, we had over 10,000 Texans sign up in support of this committee. And what we're doing is matching that to the voter file so that we can get those people involved at the local level. Many of them who have not been involved before in politics. We've had over 1,600 individual donors to that effort. The average gift is about $36. We had raised, about 3 weeks ago, we had raised about $108,000, and the last time I was in the office, the desk was covered in checks coming in from all over the state, and people who understand the importance of the House effort. And Erwin, I can't begin to tell you how much I would love to see Mark Homer retired from this area. I really am thrilled about your running. When the DNC, Democrat National Committee, had its winter meeting, they decided they were going to throw a shot across the bow, and so they came to Austin, Texas, probably the only place in the state that would really want to host them. But it was funny because we decided that we wanted to send them all back to wherever they came from, the socialist slum pit, as I call it, with a message to keep their hands off Texas. Literally in the first 2 weeks we put that petition, we had over 6,000 Texans sign the petition that would be sent to the Democrat National Committee and Barack Obama to stay the heck out of Texas. So let me just tell you, if you haven't signed on already, you can go to handsoff.texas.com or go to texasgop.org, which is the Republican Party website, and find that petition and sign it. Well, their last day in town was September 12th. So we were going to have a rally to send them home with the message, Hands Off Texas. There were several hundred people who literally braved record-setting rain. I have never been that wet in my entire life. And to send them on their way home. And it was funny, one reporter asked me, he said, well, are you disappointed with the turnout? I said, disappointed? It is raining cats and dogs, and there are 200 people standing out here for an hour at this rally. This is just God's way of cleaning off as they leave town. So anyway, he didn't print that, but we had a good time anyway. I tell you, at the end of the day though, we can keep Texas strong, free, and proud only by staying involved in the political process and ensuring that we continue to fight for our values, because at the end of the day, it is our principles that help people achieve the American dream. We need to build a strong conservative majority in the Texas House to help protect those principles and, quite frankly, to put them in action. We need to minimize the number of Democrat legislators who stand at the back line and chug so that we can't get things like photo ID to vote. The Senate did its job. We were up at least 36 hours that night when photo ID was in the House. I was there. I think I testified about 6 a.m. the morning after I had gotten there. And we got it done in the Senate, but we could not do it in the House because those Democrat legislators stood at those back lines and continued, and a lot of things died that day. Quite frankly, we need to minimize the number of Democrats who can turn high, tuck their tail between their legs and run to Oklahoma, like they did back in the redistricting effort. And if y'all will remember with me, Governor Kerry kept calling sessions until they came back to Austin and did the job that they were elected to do, and the result was the most conservative delegation in the nation. Some of the few people who are actually standing up to what's going on in Washington,